monster blocks, step-back threes, and smooth handles. Victor Wembanyama has had a record-breaking rookie season. But was it the best rookie season ever? And are we really watching the next generational talent?
He walks up to Tim and was like, hey, Tim Martin, I want to play Tyrese one-on-one, but I want to be on all-time defense. And I'm like, huh? I've never heard a player say that. Like, I just want to play defense in one-on-one. One-on-one, I do like same moves I always do, and I get to the paint, come to my right layup, and he grabs my layup off the glass, and I'm like, hold on, let me tighten up real quick.
We're going to break down his historical rookie season and see where it stacks up among the all-time greats. Victor Wembanyama's arrival in the NBA was met with high anticipation, but that anticipation quickly turned to fear. The French center has smashed all expectations and broken countless rookie records. The GMs of the other 29 franchises are watching from a distance as a generational talent is building in San Antonio. Victor Wembanyama is not just the best prospect in years, he may be the most unstoppable force the league has ever seen. It feels like a new era of basketball is upon us. He's changing the game. Victor Wembanyama has entered the chat.
He's so high in the air, so when he talk trash, it sounded like he whispering. So he was like, go back up. Go, yo, you scared. So I had to remind him today. I was like, you said I was scared. I don't want to take a leap, but he's definitely going to be one of the greatest defenders of all time.
The most dominant players of each generation have been able to push the boundaries of basketball forward. This is something we talked about in an earlier video. We saw how the players who have reached the peak of the NBA have helped shape and change the game. We also talked about how Nikola Jokic has dominated and helped define the current reigning era of positionless basketball. But his dominant era could be coming to an end sooner than we thought. It was April 12th of 2024. The Denver Nuggets were in Texas to take on the San Antonio Spurs. The teams arrived with totally different records. The Nuggets had 56 wins and the Spurs 21. But what everyone wanted to see was the final duel between Nikola Jokic and Victor Wembanyama this season. The duel between the present and the future of basketball. A 48-minute battle. It was a must-win game for the Nuggets because they still had a chance to get that coveted number 1 seed that would have given them home court advantage against all the teams in the West. San Antonio had nothing to play for, nothing at stake. Well, except for their own competitive pride. It was an opportunity to show their intentions for the upcoming season. It was a chance to make a statement with a good performance against the best team in the NBA. That's the thing with Victor. He wants to win at all costs. Even if he's on one of the worst teams in the league facing one of the best, the reigning champions. He didn't back down. His enormous ambition and hunger for greatness are qualities well known to Spurs fans. So as soon as the game started, he got to work. First, showing his spectacular handles. In one of the first plays, demonstrating moves that no player of his height should be able to do. Then, showing his incredible court vision while sharing the court with the best passing center of all time. He has the ability to shoot from anywhere on the court, even after a tricky step back. And meanwhile, on defense, he was showing his huge impact, as in this play where he blocked a Reggie Jackson floater attempt from the free throw line. But when you finally realize that you're watching a generational talent is when you see his teammates setting screens for him. Victor Wembanyama is the first 7'4" player in NBA history to be able to play both roles in a pick and roll. But then this during their comeback in the third. He hits back-to-back threes with Jokic guarding him. He had 17 points in the third quarter. He had a huge block in the fourth quarter against Jokic. The Spurs came back from being down 23 to beat the reigning champs Denver Nuggets with a buzzer beater. Victor Wembanyama had an incredible performance with 34 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks with 5 three-pointers. A performance that by Wemby's standards has become normal. But if we put this performance in perspective, it's something special. Victor was the 8th player in league history to achieve those numbers in a game, the other 7 being Michael Jordan, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Luka Doncic, and Jason Tatum. Yes, we're talking about a rookie achieving records that only some of the best players in league history have been able to achieve. That win against Denver was just the icing on the cake for an unprecedented season. That's right. The Spurs finished with 22 wins during the regular season and didn't even come close to making the playoffs in one of the toughest Western conferences in history. But on an individual level, Wemby has exceeded expectations that seemed completely surreal. I'm going to show you the list of players who have matched Victor's averages this season since 1949. We are talking about those players who have managed to average at least 21.4 points, 10.6 rebounds, 3.9 assists, and 3.6 blocks per game during a season. And this list looks like this. Indeed, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the only player in the entire history of the league who's been able to surpass the numbers that Wemby has achieved this year. And adding such a trivial factor as three-pointers, Victor's season becomes totally unprecedented. Never before has a rookie shown such high potential on both ends of the court. Never has a rookie had such an impact on a team that was built to lose. Once Popovich learned how to use Wembanyama and the Frenchman has figured out how to translate his skills into wins, the Spurs have been closer than ever to being a winning team since Kawhi left the franchise. In the last 23 regular season games, San Antonio had 11 wins and 12 losses, a big improvement from the first half of the season. A rookie season for the record books. Victor Wembanyama is the youngest player in history to have a 40-20 game. The only player in NBA history with more than 1,500 points, 250 blocks, and 100 threes in a single season. The fastest player to reach 1,000-plus points, 500-plus rebounds, and 150-plus blocks in their career. Only player in NBA history to average at least 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks, and 1 three-pointer per game. Only player in NBA history to have more than 250-plus blocks, 250-plus assists, and 100-plus threes in a season. Second player to ever record 25-plus points, 10-plus rebounds, 5-plus assists, 5-plus steals, and 5-plus blocks in a game. Hakeem Olajuwon is the other player. Averaged at least 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks in a season. The last player to do this was MVP Shaq. Most consecutive double-doubles by a teenager in NBA history. Second youngest player to record 10 blocks in a game. Led the NBA in blocks with 3.6 per game. Led the NBA in stocks, which is steals plus blocks, with 4.8 per game. Wemby finished his rookie season averaging 21.4 points per game, 10.6 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 1.2 steals, and 3.6 blocks, becoming the first player in post-merger NBA history to average those numbers or better for a season. This is just the beginning. We're witnessing something historic, not just the fact that Victor's been able to amass records during his rookie year and show an impact that's been historical, but his profile is so novel that it threatens to change the trajectory of the league forever. Basketball is a sport that was dominated by big men for decades, but then perimeter players showed that with skill and athleticism, they were capable of standing up to them. Over the last 3 decades, the NBA stopped being a league of bigs and became a league of wings and guards. Superstars proved that size was not as important as basketball skills, and players like Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, Kobe Bryant, or Steph Curry managed to destroy all the league's defenses with their skills and expertise. However, something has changed. Before Victor Wembanyama came to the NBA, we were already witnessing a change. Centers like Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid started to dominate the league from the most marginalized positions of the 21st century, and prove that their huge frames didn't hinder them from performing perimeter duties also. The Serbian managed to turn the weaknesses of the classic center into the strengths of the center of the future, and managed to turn basketball into a positionless sport. His ring with the Denver Nuggets in 2023 proved that his method was capable of elevating his team, and the point center has become a mold upon which the youngsters try to build their game. This is something we talked about in our video on Jokic. Players like Alperen Şengün, Domantas Sabonis, or Chet Holmgren have emerged or are emerging into the league's elite with a style of play that didn't exist just a decade ago. However, there's one prospect who has not only taken this baton, but seems to have an ambition to seize the throne. Victor Wembanyama doesn't want to just become one of the disciples of the Nikola Jokic era. Victor wants to be the next evolution and take the frontiers of the big man even further. After the league became a playground for wings and guards because of their superb technical ability, centers have once again proven that size matters. The gap between the technical ability of an average perimeter player and the technical ability of an average big man has never been smaller. And now that interior players have taken on significantly increased responsibilities in their roles, the league's trend has completely changed. The reasons are many, but one of the most important is that the concept of mismatch is no longer a two-way deal. Small big and big small situations have always existed in the league. Centers were able to use their size and strength on smaller defenders to punish them whenever they got stuck on a screen. For their part, guards have always been able to use their speed, technique, and triple threat to punish bigs who had the same thing happen to them. However, the mismatch concept is evolving in only one direction. Big players are still capable of scoring with ease matched up with smaller defenders, but guards can no longer do the same in reverse. Big men have evolved to be much quicker than before, much more disciplined on defense than before, and much more versatile than before. It's becoming more and more common to see how in many cases the younger centers are able to go out to defend the perimeter and are able to lock down some of the opposing stars successfully in many situations that used to be considered a mismatch. What this situation has caused is that the NBA is once again a battle for inches. With the reduced skill gap, height becomes one of the most important factors. The game's evolving in a direction where offensive playmakers are getting taller and taller, and players under 6'3" are having more and more trouble finding their niche in the league. Logically, this is a generalization. There are dozens of undersized players who are still very effective in modern basketball, and this is just the beginning of a trend that could change the league completely. But if one thing is certain, it's that it is becoming more and more normal to see huge guards who are capable of defending multiple positions. But the most important thing is that in this battle for inches, there's one player who has an advantage over the rest. 7'4" Victor Wembanyama has the athletic conditions to become a generational player, and he has the mental and technical conditions to fight to be the best player of all time. The center is the best example of this trend towards absurdity, in which a player with an unheard-of frame is beginning to realize that he'll be able to run the league at will. You have to realize, this is probably the worst version of Victor Wembanyama we are going to see during his entire NBA career. He's never, ever going to be worse than he is now. His floor is so high that it's higher than the ceiling of 90% of the prospects that make it to the best basketball league in the world every year. There are many factors that today are very difficult for the average team's defense to assimilate. For starters, Victor's already probably the best lob threat in league history. His wingspan of 8 feet, coupled with his size, allows him to receive over any defender and in virtually any context. Making an entry pass has never been as easy as it is with the Frenchman. From the low post in cutting situations, in pick and roll situations, from the dunker spot, his presence in the paint is so abysmal that not even the strongest centers in the league can match up with him, for the simple reason that Wembanyama doesn't need to use force to get to his hotspots. The prototypical strong defender that's been able to eclipse the production of some of the best centers of the last decades has been rendered useless by a player capable of doing the impossible with an unprecedented build. Another very important factor is his skill set. Wemby has demonstrated the ability to shoot from any position on the court, and catch and shoot off the dribble. After complicated footwork moves like sidesteps or stepbacks, his bag of moves at 20 years of age seems typical of an authentic NBA veteran, not to mention his range. Wembanyama has made three-pointers from huge distances during the season, which has meant that eventually, centers have had to go out and cover him from the logo. But part of this offensive production comes thanks to another of the reasons that makes him a unicorn. We're talking about his extraordinary ball handling. Victor, being a rookie, has a ball handling ability that not many players can aspire to, or at least the confidence to pull off these moves. A 7'4", 8-foot wingspan player is able to beat defenders off the dribble, using his quick first step and handles to get to the rim in favorable situations. Offensively alone, Victor's a player that's going to change the league completely. But if we add the defensive side of the game, that's when we realize that he has virtually no flaws. His huge length makes him very difficult to beat off the dribble, and his lightweight and great footwork allow him to have a lateral movement speed that's a nightmare for those players who try to go around him. But just as his frame allows him to be one of the greatest lob threats in history thanks to his reach, the same reach is present on defense. Wembanyama can afford to be late on helps or react to situations where a player shouldn't be able to, thanks to his combination of athleticism and instinct. The 3.58 blocks per game he's averaged this season is the best mark in the NBA since Marcus Camby averaged 3.61 in the 2007 to 2008 season. But if we take the sample since the All-Star break, Wembanyama has averaged 4.4 blocks per game, the highest figure since Dikembe Mutombo averaged 4.49 blocks per game in the 95-96 season. The only reason Victor Wembanyama is not going to be Defensive Player of the Year is because his team's record is so bad. In any other context, the story would be completely different. Wemby is like Godzilla in the paint, a gigantic monster destroying anyone that dares to drive to the rim. When Wemby patrols the paint, opponents just run away in fear. They make a complete U-turn, second-guessing every drive, every decision. They're paralyzed in fear. They don't want to be the next victim of his monster block viral highlight reel. Nobody else has that kind of impact on the defensive end. He has guys second-guessing their life choices mid-drive. He has them running in retreat and just launching up a prayer in complete desperation. His presence is not just felt in the paint, though. He's even blocking people out at the three-point line. With a few leaps and his soaring wingspan, he smashes shots like a soaring pterodactyl. He's insane. I don't think many people realize what Victor Wembanyama can mean for the evolution of basketball. We may be talking about the best prospect in the history of the sport, in an era in which the professionalization and improvement of the sport have made it possible to exploit the weaknesses of players to an even greater degree. A player has arrived who doesn't seem to have any. Wemby's playing profile is as complete as one could imagine. He looks like a gimmicked build in a video game that no one can cope with. But moving away from analogy with video games, where companies can buff or nerf players, this time the NBA can do nothing to contain him. If he learns to exploit his skills even more, he can become truly dominant. It seems impossible to stop the force of a player who has all the tools, skills, and size to dominate on both sides of the floor. They might have to change the rules just to give a chance to defend him. He's the ultimate mismatch. Too huge to be stopped inside, yet far too skilled to be contained on the perimeter. His natural abilities seem straight out of a video game. If he stays on this trajectory and realizes his potential, we might just be witnessing one of the best players ever. The game's evolution never stops, but Victor Wembanyama stands ready to make his mark and push the game forward. Is this the Victor Wembanyama era?